So when it comes to social care, this isn't just about looking after older people. Paul de Savary is the managing director of Home from Home. They run the Old Vicarage Care Home in Stallingborough near Grimsby, and they look after people with complex mental health needs. Paul, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining me. So this comes down to the question of, is national insurance the way to do it? Is this the answer here by increasing national insurance?
Well, before I answer that question, which I'm not sure how well I can answer, I would like to say that actually we need to understand what the money is for or needed for, because in fact there are two separate issues. One is staff are not being paid enough, so there are not enough staff within the sector. That's one issue. And then the second issue is there's not enough funding of care, so not everyone is getting their fair share of care. So I think one needs to understand those two issues behind all of this. In respect of national insurance, or whether it should be income tax or whatever, I'm not a government, I'm not a politician, so I don't know. But what I do know is that care affects everybody, and if you create a tax which taxes everybody, and if that is unfair because some people can't afford to pay it, if it's £200 a year and they're at the lower end, well then presumably government's quite capable of changing the allowances that people get so as effectively to give those people a greater allowance or a subsidy of some sort.
Do you think, we're talking to you, you don't look after older people, you look after younger people with complex needs. And I was listening this morning to a national BBC station talking about the funding of social care and using the example that it's younger people paying to look after the older people. But when it comes to this term social care, the sort of what you're doing is getting overlooked here.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely right, because I think the perception is that social care is for older people, older people sadly are time limited, the amount of time that they will actually spend in a care home, towards the end of their lives. We are all about younger people, and we're about people who are perhaps going to live 40, 50, 60 years, more perhaps in some instances. So this is more about giving these people a proper life, and it's very important that we do that, especially where the type of or the level of complexity of individuals that we support, if you don't support them in the right way, then actually they cost much more to support from an economic sense in the longer term, because if you don't give them the right support, then they will become perhaps more challenging, they will learn behaviors, and it will be just much more complex to support them. So by not having enough funds, you actually create a bigger requirement for funds in the future.
Clearly, I get the feeling that you don't look for a quick fix here. You heard that clip of Charles Walker, the Tory MP, say that some kind of insurance model might be the way forward, whether that, I suspect, could be a nod towards an American system. But does this whole funding model need ripping up and starting again, do you think?
Well, to be honest, as a provider of care and having heard this thing go on for years and years, I think somebody just needs to make a decision, and they need to accept whatever they do, it's not going to be perfect. And what they then need to do is, having made a decision, they then need to sort out the fallouts that come from that decision. And I think they need to be honest about it. That is no different to delivering care, where we have somebody who is very complex. You have to make a decision about doing something to support them in a different way in that moment of time. Now, that's just a decision. Whether that was a good decision or a bad decision is then how you then deal with the follow-up and the fallout from all of that, and how agile you are. And the sad thing is that government is so moribund, it is so lacking in any sense of agility that, why isn't it just say, look, we're going to make a decision, it's going to be income tax or it's going to be national insurance, and we will look at the fallout from that and we will make changes as a result of that. Why isn't it just honest, instead of trying to come up with a great solution? And we know it isn't going to be a great solution. Whatever they come up with, they will be criticized for. So why not just say, here is the solution, we accept it won't be perfect, but we will look at the fallout of that and we will tweak it as we go along, and just have a more open approach to it.
Paul, thank you very much for joining me. Good to speak to you. Thank you. Paul de Savary, the managing director of the organisation Home from Home. They run a care home in Stallingborough near Grimsby.